I can move the table here if you want. So you're doing all these, right? All right, to here. Okay. Are you doing this one too?
No. You can do that intro now. And then you do your slides, your QR code.
I will send you that slide. So, and in fact, you can take a picture of it too if you want to, because I have the form, it's spelled out.
We're doing 4 questions at a time, and everyone is going to do the QR code and answer, and then they'll discuss, so that the discussion doesn't bias their answers. And then at the very end, we'll put them all up.
We'll report
So-
out and then have a big discussion.
So just if you can capture any huge things that resonate at the table, and if people want to talk all about one question, that's fine too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just important part is that you capture the discussion at your table.
Yep, okay. So you said 15 minutes for each discussion.
15 for each set of 4.
Yep. Have you, the communities are supposed to be accessible to you, right?
I never used it. But you're right, I think. Because I was clicking something before looking for the agenda, and I ended up with the community.
Okay.
So,
Because the institutional members thing is going to.
Hi, how are you? Oh,
hi. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
oh, yeah, so far. You got our presentation. I couldn't, the Speaker Resource Center wasn't working for days.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so I asked them if they had it, and they didn't have it, so I just switched for my laptop and we'll get it. Trust me, this is my 20th ABR.
I think it's my 20th too.
So we have backups.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we have backups on our
I
backups.
like hearing that.
No worries there.
Well, I'll be lingering, so if you need something.
Maybe on the social
Okay.
timeline.
That's the game.
No, leaderboard was a game, right?
Oh, right. Social timeline is just what people have posted.
What are you looking for?
No, community.
Yeah.
What do you mean by community?
ABR community is the online portal.
Is the affinity group that you belong to, and all the chat that happens in that group.
Hi, Lisa.
Me too. If I hadn't asked the question, I probably would have had it.
Did you figure it out?
So, yeah, we've got
took a screenshot on my phone. So if people can read it, I can just go up to the table and they can scan my phone.
Should I do that?
Can you scan my phone and see if it works? Yeah, it should work. Perfect. So, who are the moderators? It's Sheena, Marimar, Claudius.
Claudius moved over there.
Okay.
Jason's there. Miramar's there. We don't have anybody at that table.
Who is Andrew, right?
Andrew's here.
So we have 8 tables.
Okay, so we've got
So we just need more people. Julie?
So as you're coming in, we want you to sit at a table with a moderator. If the moderators could raise their hand. So these tables could need somebody to facilitate. So if we want to converge on a moderator table. There's one here, there's one there, one here. We have 2 more coming, but they're not here yet. Oh, well, the moderator will join us. We have 2 more coming, but they're not here yet. So we'll just stay put. Okay, yeah, you want to do your table? Grab 2. We have Julie's coming as she's moderating. Thank you. I slide in and out of things a lot.
No, it's just one opportunity to speak about the survey.
Oh, okay.
Sridar's supposed to send me something.
Yes, he did say he'd do that.
Notebooks are downstairs, so.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I think we can get started, because we're gonna talk for a couple minutes anyways.
So which tables don't have moderators?
Over here doesn't.
So two, right?
Well, this one and which one?
Tim's going to be the moderator at your table. Yeah. You've been voluntold. Welcome to ABRF.
That's what happens.
And there's this one table.
Just two, okay.
I think Amy is going to take notes at that table. Okay, so what we are going to be doing, so welcome to our session. Susanna and I will be talking about how you could use your faculty startup packages and leverage equipment purchases and deal with some of these topics in this session. If you remember, some of you might have been at one of our town halls a couple of months ago, where we talked about this situation where faculty is being hired and they have this fantastic equipment that they absolutely have to have, and they want to have it in their lab. And then come situations where faculty decides to leave or changes their project, and what do you do with the equipment now? And so this was an issue that was started as a chat and then became a town hall, and now it's this session, and we have a survey here that everybody will participate in. And the idea is that this will be a dynamic continuing conversation. So we have table facilitators and moderators today, and we have Julie, who is not here yet, which is why Amy is going to be at that table. We have Megan, we have Marmar, we have Sheena, Claudius, Shaker's not here yet, and Jason and Andrew. So if you don't, there's no one at your table, right? Okay, why don't you join this table? Unless one of you wants to take notes. So the idea is when you do the survey, we will do like 4 questions. I want your answers to be unbiased. Right? So you answer the survey, and then you talk about all those questions at your table. Have your discussions. And so there will be ideas and things that come up that weren't captured in the survey. And I want the moderator at your table to capture those thoughts so we can put it together. The goal is at the end of the day, we take the survey results, we'll take other discussions outside. In fact, Kevin's going to have a meeting with the administrators later on, and maybe capture some of the information there, and make it into a JBT article that everybody can access and use. So getting that information is the crucial part. Because we all love to talk, we can talk about it, but capturing what we talked about is the hard part. So, take it away, Susanna.
Okay, so how many of you were at the town hall in February? A good showing, maybe? Okay, so at the town hall, there were lots of discussion, and we promised the people at the town hall that we would gather all the information, all the comments, all the different themes that were predominant, and that we would put together a session for ABRF. So thank you to Copilot for putting together a nice slide deck of everything, the entire recorded transcript. So some of the themes that resonated through were what participants surfaced were really common challenges and practices around equipment placement, funding models, staffing, governance, and how complex this whole process was. And then also we could sense the central tension and the call to action for all of us that we really need to figure out how to make this work, how to balance what PIs need with sustainable shared infrastructure. Written policies and agreements. Why are they important? That resonated as well. Nothing verbal, we need to have things in writing. And what do we need to define in writing? That came through the chat quite a bit. And institutional-wide policies equal consistency. We can't have one department doing one thing and another doing another. The risks of PI-owned equipment. So when high-end instruments are purchased and placed in labs instead of institutional cores, the fairness and compliance, we're competing then with the different labs. And how do we work that? And duplication, that resonated across an awful lot of the topics. Parallel purchases, duplicate capability, and who's responsible for repairs, and the need for clear criteria when you have instrumentation, you're placing it. You know, who's paying for the expenses, who's responsible for staffing, going on to funding, staffing, and again, duplication risks. So funding models, how do we structure this? And we had demos from some of the people that had actually put in place parts of these processes. And then staffing limits, when you put something in shared resource, and what if there's no FTE to help support it? Who's responsible? The PI that got the equipment? The core? And then another duplication risk. So late stage planning causes problems with redundancies. And finally, communication. That's so important everywhere. Metrics and asset tracking. So transparency builds trust. I know some of the questions came through. We don't know until the item's on the dock or the item's in the hallway and it doesn't fit through the door. And then performance metrics. How do we measure it? How do we measure it when it's in a lab? How do we measure it when it's in a core? And then we also talked about asset tracking. So many people had different ways of tracking, and many of the comments were that we don't know what's out there. So all of these questions Sridar and I took and we put together into the survey. So we're going to be discussing these topics. So the way the session's organized, you're going to have 4 questions, 4 at a time. Answer them on the QR code, and then the discussion will be at the table, and then we'll move on to the next set. And then at the end, we'll have all the answers. So I'll let Sridar.
So that's the QR code for the survey, if you can get that. I've written it out. Don't answer all the questions. You'll have access to it. There'll be a slide on there that says stop discussion. So we'll take about 10 to 15 minutes to discuss that. That's where the moderators, the facilitators at your table will capture any of your ideas that weren't captured by the survey. And if you can't see the QR code, let me know. I have a snapshot of it on my phone, and I can bring it over to the table. Just 4 questions, and you'll come to a stop sign, so don't go beyond that.
It will say stop for 15 minutes to discuss. So our first 15 minutes is over for the first set of 4 questions. So you want to go back to your phone and move on to the next set of questions for another 15.
And we repeat this again, and then repeat this again. At the end, we
So we're doing,
discussion of all the
yeah, we're doing 3 sets.
Right, there are 3 sets. You know, as I was walking around, I was hearing different conversations. They were very interesting, but weren't captured in the survey. So make sure you put those things down. Like if you have a policy in place, who has it? Would you be willing to share a template for them? Other people can learn from there. So in the end, you want to create best practices. Right? It may not be a one shoe fits all.
Okay, we just ended the second set of questions, so we're going to move on to the last set. And there should be 4. These are operational challenges.
posted in the chat and somebody answered it yesterday.
Yeah, I have it on my phone, but I don't have it here. Oh, that. Does that work? Kevin runs the slides. Yeah, there it goes. So, oh, this is not connected.
Innovate, capital I, ABLF.
I think I must have it because I'm online.
Yeah, okay.
I guess. It's like, where am I here? Yeah, I'm on. I just sent everything.
Can you go to the last slide? I don't know if it's capturing yet because people haven't hit submit.
I don't, where would it be?
Keep going. Just one slide up. Yeah, this one.
Hit it?
Control. Yeah, 17. So it's captured. Cool.
Oh, this is hard to read. Incentives of drive. So first choices are these. Priority access. So do you want to go through them kind of one by one and if there's any topics?
And then people can chime in from their tables what else they have.
So this one only has 13. Well, actually, that would be people who hit submit for everything, right? Because does it go through? Are there more in here? Oh yeah, there's 33, 43, 44 there.
No, I mean it's 17 responses,
Oh, that's right. Okay.
and of which I think I still have 2 of ours from. I can go back and look at the individual ones.
Okay.
I deleted. I was deleting the.
Shouldn't we have like 50 of them?
If people haven't hit submit,
Oh,
right?
they haven't hit submit. Okay.
These are the people who quit the survey, so they're going back in. So there's some data cleanup to do afterwards.
We gotta take a picture. You and me.
Yeah. I told Andrew.
So we've got 3 minutes. So we're over at what, 5:45?
5:45. Yeah.
Oh, you can, they don't have mics there.
There's one in the middle.
exhibit hall, right?
as you come back, like there's a table.
I went there and there were none.
They must be out. Not yet.
I don't know if they're.
Ken would have it. They should have it.
I have a bazillion of them at the office, but I just figured get one here. A minute. So we should be wrapping up conversations now on the last one.
Did everybody last submit this the surveys?
Roll out the answers.
All right. All right. Survey says, let me blow this up. Even I can't read it. There. So we had about 48 responses, and the majority of the people say that it'll be the provost or the vice president's office, somebody similar who's going to be making the decision, followed by the PI and the co-director. So I like to hear what discussions happen at your table. Do you guys have a different mechanism? Do you have any policies in place at your institution?
Well, I guess I chose PI, but I would have preferred to have. So I ended up, it's VP for research, but I chose PI because often it's the department that becomes the advocate for the PI. So it depends on how bad that department wants that investigator. They could push harder for that piece of equipment on behalf of the PI.
So I think we follow a very different model than probably rest of all of you. So, so if sorry, I'm from Varsity Blood Research Institute in Milwaukee. So it's a research institute that is paid through foundation money. So they have blood banks, and the profit from the blood banks that comes to us. So every instrument that is including the startup instrument that purchased by the institute is a shared resource instrument. So if you are a new PI coming and this is part of your startup grant, then that instrument will be in the lab of a PI, but it's managed by the shared resources, and shared resource director is the responsible person for the instrument. And we support training, we support all kind of maintenance and everything. Now, advantage to PI, they get priority access. So almost for first year or first 1 or 2 years, depends upon their usage, we don't open that instrument to rest of the institute. But after that period is over, which we call soft gliding period, the moment the soft gliding period is over, that instrument is open for the rest of the institute. And people can go and use it based on the bookings, and we do that iLab booking. And the third thing what we do, for the people who are, and then the PIs are given option that you can support us for service with the service contract or the instrument. If they do so, then they will get a free access to the instrument or reduced cost access. Otherwise, they will pay the fee, same thing. But again, only thing that they will keep getting for rest of their life of the instrument is the priority access to the instrument. There people, if they have a booking, they will get a scheduling for those instruments on a priority basis. So this is something that we do. And all the instruments that we have basically part of the shared resource, and we manage it. Unless a PI purchase from their own fund, not the startup fund, their own fund.
Sheena?
Yeah, so going back to that first question, it doesn't just start with, deciding where an instrument goes. It's why are we even getting this instrument? And so, that gets to faculty recruitment and the importance of cores being involved in faculty recruitment, because that starts a conversation about appropriateness.
When someone is, my name is Lisa Cameron from Duke University, and when I address this with department chairs or whatever, they say that they will lose their competition to get the top people if they tell them what to do with the startup money, right? So then it's always the PI is deciding if it's their own money, whether to get and what to get, if it's outside the core. And there's no incentive really to put, microscopy is maybe something more that people want in their lab. That's what I run. So there's not mass specs in everybody's lab, so it depends.
Though I've seen people try to get it.
Oh, you got 2 of them in your hand already.
All right, so Bonnie's priority access was the top incentive that everybody was providing. It was ranked first choice, followed by future funding support will be provided if you let the instrument go to your core and reduce costs. And if you answered other, there was no space for you to add, so hopefully the moderator at your table captured what that other was. So can you speak upon that? I don't know who answered other.
At our table, the other reason, the other incentive to put into a shared facility is saving space in somebody's lab in space-constrained organizations. But we also had discussion that, sometimes new faculty coming in don't have any problems with space or being too crowded in space. They get all the space they want. So, but space can be helpful in an incentive.
Okay. Anybody else had other?
I'm a very poor reporter. Somebody else on my team said the downstream or upstream applications or support of the research pipeline, right, is also another incentive to have it in a core. If it's going to tie into other, use of other cores or sample preparation or, the downstream and upstream pieces.
Good. Is the mic on?
Hi, I'm Shekhar from Mount Sinai in New York City. I was surprised to see priority access as the top priority for you guys. I just want to understand, how do you do with all the conflicts that might arise due to giving priority access to a certain PI and not others? How do you even manage an iLab and all that? So anybody who does that and want
Megan?
If they have a problem, they should have bought it. So we in iLab, we release the schedule earlier for priority access individuals than we do for others. So normally they get like an extra week to sign up for things. But there's also the caveat of you have to actually use the time that you sign up for. And so there ends up being a penalty. Like if you end up booking 3 days in a row and you use 45 minutes on the third day, then you're paying for all that time. All of our cores have a cancellation policy, and so even though you're the special one and you get priority access, you still got to follow the rules. Yes, I do. Homie, don't play.
Then the other question was, what are some examples where PIs highlight as the most beneficial to them when they put things in a shared facility? Of course, PI is not responsible for cost of maintaining the instrument stuff. When they don't have to pay, they love it. So that's always a big seller, right? If their money is used for something else, that's good. PI can use the core staff expertise, and that is a very valuable from a course perspective, right? We see lots of samples. Right? Not everybody is bringing samples in stellar conditions. And we see samples across multiple projects, not just that one PI's project. So the core staff have a lot of expertise that this PI's people can leverage and make sure that the experiment that they're designing is designed perfectly. And even if they were going to do the library prep, genomics course, so if they're going to do a library prep and everything themselves, we have trained them, at least given them enough information so they don't screw up and then make the mistakes that other people have already made, right? So we can fix those things ahead of time. So they always like that. Instrument is available for other faculty. That's always good because some people want to, but they don't have a grant and they're not high up in the totem pole to be able to request it. But if it's available to them, great. Now they got the preliminary data. They can do a collaboration. It builds that enthusiasm in the university. Revenue from the shared facility can be used in service contracts, right? So whatever money is generated can go back right to, making sure that instrument is taken care of. So that's always been successful, at least in my university. Marketing and promotion, I don't know about that one. The core will talk about it because it's survival. So they will talk about the instrument being available, which the PI may not necessarily do, but so that will increase more utility or usage of the instrument. And I don't know what that other was. So if you picked other, or okay. It was at the bottom, I know, but I couldn't find a way to give you X or some way to delete that. But and then here you could only pick one, right? So should core credits be restricted to one instrument? The core credit, or should it be applied to all the equipment in a core or usage across all the cores in the institution? And most of the people said all the resources within a specific core facility. So that makes sense, right? So if it's the flow cytometry core, for example, that is taking the brunt of this instrument, then the money should go back to the flow cytometry core across all the equipment that they have. Right? It kind of becomes a little unfair for every, even though it's nice to be equitable and share resources across your fellow partners, when it comes to your fixing your instrument, unless the genomics core is willing to pay for your service contract, it's good. That's revenue generated. Anya.
So I actually responded the majority, but then I thought about it that it can be a way for the new recruited people to also discover other cores. So may want to change that. And also the core, the point that you just made about you know, it's also a benefit for the Corps to get an additional newer instrument, right? So it's not just it costs them money, it's also they can bring in more service. So I think overall, I would change to all services across all Corps for the vouchers. Just wanted to say that.
So the last one, the green one.
Yeah. So how do you get buy-in from other core directors to use their cores for credit that they do not benefit from the equipment?
So it doesn't matter, right? So I'm the payer. I got my vouchers here. I go to genomics. I give her, I pay the same with the voucher.
No, but the equipment is in microscopy, say.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, right?
I have a follow-up on that because I was going to ask that question. I think it's dependent on the offer. Did the offer actually include bringing in a piece of equipment? Or I love what she had talked about earlier today. Year one, you just get $200,000 in core credits. And
Spend
you
it
can't
wherever you want.
you can't buy any piece of equipment for 1 year. So go forth and prosper.
That's great. Question here?
No, it's a dream.
Can you repeat it?
How many people know about core credits available in startup packages at your university?
So I think there's another problem.
Whoever was going to fund whatever piece of equipment that was would be the one that would fund the credits. And typically it would be cheaper. You know, if you're looking for a $250,000 piece of equipment, maybe you got 200 in credit. So it's a better deal
So
all around.
I think the problem here is with the access across. Actually, I wrote access across all the cores, but I think there's a financial and legal problem there, and the main issue, how actually finance is managed within the core. That is actually the most important thing we need to think about while we are choosing that option. So in Varsity, I see everything for financial related things, all budgeting, finance, and all the money comes to one single pool, which is shared resource director's account. Those models, it's okay to give access to, but I was actually previously in AL, YCGA. YCGA was a standalone core, and I think that most of the cores in AL was, or a lot of the cores are like that, where they are dealing with their own finances. The director of the share, that core is responsible for that. So then you are giving a blanket access to core credit to rest of the core, where they are not benefited from that instrument. Is kind of a complicated situation from the finance and cost recovery is concerned. So I think it depends upon how the finance is managed in the system. If it is a centralized finance managing and the cost recovery is calculated at a centralized point, like what I am at, then all the options are good. But if you are actually, each core is looking for their recovery and they are actually accounting for that, then that model may fail because
I don't understand why. I don't see why. I'm an investigator, I'm being recruited, and I get $200,000 of core credit. So I have a fund that is restricted to the use of my 26 core facilities. That's the only way I can spend that money, okay? So from those 200K, I'm gonna spend this month 10,000 with genomics, 20,000 with microscopy, etc. Why is that not working? As opposed to me paying with my grant, with R1 grant.
because the cost recovery, so it's not just about the instrument. Instrument is actually one part of the story that is going into, say, microscopy. So one microscope gone to the microscopy. And now core credits are being used, but somebody is taking the cost of that because it's a free money. Nobody is going to pay that money because now it's given to free. I mean, in free money in sense like it's not something, all the benefits from the instrument that the rest of or whatever you say residual benefit of that instrument is not going to come to any of the other core facilities.
So
Can I think we're fighting the good fight, but I think we're fighting two different fights. So again, I'm going to go back to my statement earlier. It depends. if somebody in their offer letter is asking for a brand new mass spec and you're like, you're going to put that thing in the core, but we're going to give you $100,000 over the next 5 years to spend it, that's different than this amazing model I wish we all used, which was, I'm going to give you $200,000. That's it. Do with it what you will. We're not buying you a piece of equipment. We're just giving you $200,000. Go use the services in which we provide on campus. And then come back to me later if we don't have something that you need. So like, again, I think we're both fighting the good fight, but we're fighting different fights. Does that make sense?
Isn't it most of the time that the PI wants a certain equipment that isn't already on the campus?
So in an effort, as we're nearing the end, we're actually at the end, we just want to go through the last few answers. These will all be available, and we're also going to get all the information from the table monitors and put them together.
And if you have other thoughts, feel free to email me or Susanna.
And we can add,
We
this
want
will be
to live.
continued, actually, we know it will be continued at the Northeast. So do we want to just go through?
Good.
Oh, okay. So we're on 6?
5 and 6.
Okay, what policy should be in place if the initial agreement between a core and PI no longer exists? Pick 2, top one was equipment should be relinquished. Cost sharing would be requested
From the department.
from the department.
And then
Criteria should be included when creating a formula for awarding core credits. Choose as many. Cost of equipment, amount of time. Actually, it was pretty evenly distributed.
Right.
Cost to upgrade.
But the
And
top
then-
3 were the annual usage by other people that's available and the capacity on the instrument that the user is going to, the PI requester is going to use. If I'm going to, it's a one-time thing, no, it needs to be on the core, right?
Right.
Or you don't get the equipment. And the cost of the equipment, whether it's $25,000 or $500,000, that makes a difference too.
How do we determine whether a piece is better suited for a core or a PI lab? Again, demand being the top one. Equipment needs expertise that would come from a core, utility and uniqueness, and annual utilization of instrumentation.
And another, I mean, it's there in one of the follow-up questions, but this one did not have was what construction needs to be happening in that core for you to place that instrument on the core? Is it cheaper to just put it in that lab and make that a core, or remodel this core to fit this one instrument? So that's, cost is always, so it's not just cost of the equipment, it's also the cost of the facilities that one has to think about. So
I
what
like that
happens when there's a
angrily
fight?
wave fists at the universe.
So this was a fun question because we don't know what the answers are going to be, and everybody's going to deal with it differently, right? No one wants competition from within.
So we have 47 different ones that we'll be sure to relay.
What steps should the core take when it receives a complex instrument but doesn't have the expertise of the staff to deal with it? The PI who donates the equipment needs to provide the staff. I think they either need to provide the staff or they need to train the staff in the core. Instrument if applicable, I think that question was instrument if applicable can go back to the PIs. The choice would be in that lab because they have the one with the most expertise. Right. Right. If it's a walk-up instrument, but the problem with walk-up instruments is that training is, if it's in a core, there's a core staff who said, okay, you're responsible for that instrument. When it's in a PI lab, the PI is responsible, but are they? They don't have the time to train their students or postdocs all the time. It's like, oh, you go talk to this person. And if that person wasn't trained, that untrained person is training another person, and now you've got a perpetual cycle of untrained people walking up and using an instrument, maybe not breaking the instrument, but doing the experiment wrong, right? And that is more dangerous. You need to have the rigor and reproducibility. So how is information concerning the equipment requests on S10 grants disseminated so that you don't have duplicate purchases? Some institutions have a committee that collates all this information and decides. Others, it's a responsibility of the requester to go and check, and which is not reasonable because our bureaucracy is so, everybody is siloed in departments that the purchasing department doesn't, or they have different people and they don't talk to each other within the thing. And at SUNY, for example, we have the state system and the RF system, and there's a foundation money. Not everybody talks to each other, even on that end, on the institutions, and where they do have access to other things. And I'm not surprised that a lot of people don't have anything. What activities would you like to see, or does your institution have in place to ensure that awareness is available for shared resources? That's an easy one. I mean, we do open houses, there's newsletters, webinars, and there's lots of talks today about communicating in your course, right? So if you haven't, that's something, that's on us. We need to make sure that we tell people, because that's marketing, right? We need to do that. Yeah. So newsletters, websites, any emails that you send out, any new information. Hey, the Corps can now do this, just so you know. Those kind of things, promoting yourself. And then Corps advisory board meetings, where you tell those people, and then they become the messengers in their departments. And since they are faculty at those levels, their peers tend to listen to them rather than some poor Corps director telling something, and they're like, what do you know? How aware of you of these new purchases? I occasionally get updated. I only find out after the fact, which is more true than others. And I'm in the loop and provided feedback. That's always a good thing. But we need to make sure that our practices in place and policies in place where it can fix something before the fact rather than the instruments are loading dock. What do we do now? Oh, that needs a 220 outlet, and there is none in this room. It has happened, right? And now there's delay because of things that could have been fixed. When a department or a PI purchases a competing piece of equipment that currently exists and then needs assistance to maintain, that has also happened many times. How is that handled? Because the equipment isn't in the Corps, it's on the PI to deal with it. You're on your own, baby. Or the PI needs to hire the Corps staff. And I think that's a good model where the Corps knows how to do it. They can train the staff, but then they need to be incentivized and reimbursed for the time that they're spending. Right? And now that shows as a revenue for the Corps. Again, you're feeding the ecosystem. So those were the questions that we had. These slides will be shared. This discussion is going to be continued. So if you're coming to Nerds, what happened? Which is in Boosters, Susanna's institution. We will be continuing this topic again, and in the meantime, we'll try and have town halls or other things through the other ABRF mechanisms to keep this conversation ongoing. If there are questions you have that weren't asked, send it to us, because we want to make sure everybody's thinking of these things, because people are making the same mistake over and over again across the country, and it's not needed, especially this time when funding is tight and we are dealing with all the other crises, so we don't need to create new ones by ourselves.
And the more we work together, it's more accepted that that's the process. Thank you for coming, and thank you for participating. I know.
Actually,
I
let me
know.
put the slide back on. So-
Yeah, we should put this slide back on. Oh, you did? You can send it. Maggie
Yeah.
just handed it to me. Either one. Anything. Anything works. Do you want to mail it to me? Yeah. Okay. We know where you are. We know where all of you are. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Man, open up, will you?
Wasn't it fun?
I was saying 4 o'clock in the afternoon when people are like,
Oh, yeah. Jason's going to take a picture.
Take a picture.
I had a long talk with Karen when I was on vacation. Yeah. We're still we're very good friends.
why is PowerPoint not open now?
So, yeah.
How's she doing?
She's doing really well. Yeah. I didn't know if she'd have any sort of, I'm not at work because she
All right,
cut ties
Susanna.
so quick. And then she moved to Florida for half the year. So she's down there. I was, whoops, oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Hold on, where are we? You're right there. Do we go in the middle? I have to go in the middle. Yes, they bought a business for him.
Absolutely.
Happy to tag me in at any time, happy to brainstorm.
No, this is great, and I think as we all kind of come up with ideas, because remember you had said something like last at the town hall, I think, that if you have a person coming in and you're like, oh no, we're going to give you credits, you sound cheap, kind of, or that oh, how come so and so institution will give me something?
And what I didn't bring up is, going back 15 years, this credit system has to be carefully evaluated too. But
Right.
mic is still on. Because the university will make all these core credits to the faculty, which we would have no clue about, and we would go by the rates to the project, and then we never got paid. Right? And so at the end of the year, when you're talking with the you guys are not bringing revenue. I'm like, what do you mean? Here's my invoice. Here's $100,000 that's messed up in. How it's been paid, more credit, this credit, that's on you. We did the service. We invoiced. So I had to fight that fight to. Yeah, Thermo Fisher is not going to say, yeah, I'm going to use my core credit.
Right.
When's my invoice getting paid?
Are you enjoying it here? Yeah, it's so good. And I love how often you do LinkedIn. I'm like so bad at that. Well, we actually don't have a lot of activity, which is, we're so small compared to UMass. So that's so different for me.
I was curious if you were doing some workforce development.
At UMass or WPI? Oh, yeah. Practice point? Where you do clinical work? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. we have, in our practice point, we actually have like, they have, training for people in the OR on equipment. So we have the equipment, and basically we're a service center for training people. So we get, hordes of UMass, mostly UMass people, they partner a lot with UMass, come and they train on the equipment and how to use it. So that's something that we're doing.
So where ours is actually in the core, and we're getting paid, we're sort of like wondering about the finances side.
Did you guys pick up the high seek or the Nova Seek? You did not, because they closed that, and I thought it was going to go to you guys.
Well, we had acquired.
Nice job, my friend. So, the story continues. The SS show. So, yeah, I thought you'd get it because it's those people
Offered, but
for free.
I don't even think we went that far. We sort of needed to see if we had the space. We were concerned about our user base.
Because those people, they closed the core.
Yeah.
I mean, that was they never should have bought it to begin with. That was one of the financial huge mistakes that they made. Well, the CFO left. He was told to leave. I mean, you don't leave that quick with no job, no goodbye party at a. He was told to leave. I mean, he was one of the main reasons that declined. So, but yeah, it's just falling apart. And then with Seth leaving, UMass Amherst doesn't have anybody.
I know. I had just seen better. The same thing. We were at the end.
Yeah.
I had seen him there.
And then it was like a week later. I emailed him and I get back, actually to help here. And I got something back saying this email's no longer being monitored. And I'm like, oh crap, that's not a I'm on vacation email. And so I asked the Amherst people, and a lot of them were tight-lipped, but Emily had said that it was a year probation, and it just wasn't working out.